no, yeah, it is. Aging in the United States, why master plans on aging matter, and which states are working on MPA and Q&A and stuff like that. At any rate, Aaron Westfall serves as a program officer at the SCAN Foundation. Aaron's work focuses on building the business case for person-centered care models and integrating the care and financing for medical and social services. Before joining the foundation, she was the special project coordinator for the City of Los Angeles Department of Aging, where she developed community-based programs for seniors and caregivers. Prior to that, Erin served as a director of research for the Beverly Foundation and as a project coordinator for the Orange County Elder Abuse Forensic Center. She holds a Master's of Science in Gerontology from the University of Southern California Davis School of Gerontology and a bachelor's degree in psychology from San Diego State University. Wave your hand, Erin. Okay, that's Erin. Megan Burke. That would be Megan, right? Yes. Okay. Megan Burke is a program officer for policy and advocacy at the SCAN Foundation. In her role, she executes the foundation's policy strategies and grant making to advance state and federal solutions that improve the lives of older adults, people with complex care needs, and their family caregivers. She was instrumental in developing the Master Plan on Aging concept through research, providing technical assistance to states interested in a master plan, and now leads the Foundation's master plan efforts in California. Megan has extensive experience in policy analysis, communications, and coalition building, as well as direct service in aging, family caregiving, health, and long-term services and supports. Join me in welcoming Ms. Megan Burke and Erin Westfall.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Ooh, I sound really loud. Hopefully the people online can hear me okay and I'm not blowing out your eardrums. I can't see the screen at all, so I'm going to assume that the slides are where they're supposed to be. And I'm really excited to be here today because I love Colorado. My mom lives in Fort Collins, so I'm going to go up there really quick to say hello to her when we're done here with you all today. But Megan and I, actually the entire foundation just has a huge passion around Master Plan for Aging. So when Karen reached out to us and asked if we would come and talk to you about our work today, it was an absolute yes. And so if you go to the next slide on the agenda, we have two things we're going to talk about. I'm going to talk about why a master plan for aging, and my first reason about why, which is changing demographics. Like Nancy just blew that out of the water, so we'll go really fast through those slides. But then Megan's going to talk to you about what's happening with master plan for aging, not only in California, but in other states. Next slide. So big surprise, people are living longer. And one of the things that is really amazing is all of you don't think this, but the general public thinks that, as they age, that one day they're just going to drop dead. And if that doesn't happen, that Medicare is going to pay for everything. We know it. We've done polling work. Like, that's how, I call them real people. Those are people who don't know it, don't work in the field. Real people, that's how they think that aging is going to happen for them. But we know that that doesn't happen, that on average, people are going to need 5 to 7 years of pretty intensive support as they age. So all of you are in the know, and, Nancy was talking about housing and aging in place and people not moving. And I'll just tell all of you, when we bought our house in California, everybody was making fun of me. I was in my 20s, and I was like, nope, we can't have any stairs. A bus stop has to be less than a block away. We have to make sure that everything's fully accepted. And they're like, Erin, you're 20. And I'm like, yeah, but I plan to age in place. And I can't buy a multi-level house that's somewhere where there's no public transportation if I'm going to age in place. And a lot of people don't think about that. I have some friends that are moving to Paonia. They just bought a house. And I kept telling them, that's great. I'm glad you're coming to Colorado. But, is there a hospital nearby? Is there a bus line for when you're not going to be able to drive anymore? And they're like, no, but we'll be fine. And I was like, okay. So At any rate, the next slide, this shows kind of the demographics in the United States. And so you can see, and this really reflects what Nancy spoke about, that it's changed over time and that people are living to be older. And if you go to the next slide, you can see what it looks like, what the spread looks like in Colorado. But once again, Nancy's information was just really super fantastic about what aging demographics look like here. So I'm not going to go into any more detail. The next slide, though, is what is kind of the second point. And this is where it gets to my comment about, people think that they're just going to drop dead one day or Medicare is going to pay for everything. And what this shows you is that people are really going to need intensive support as they age. And people just haven't planned for that. And Nancy was talking about the housing stock. A lot of times we hear the words that people are house rich and cash poor. So you may have a lot of equity in your home, but you don't have the money that you need to pay for your services. And that our current system isn't designed to meet the needs of everyone as they age. Next slide. And so this is our current system in California. It's pretty fantastic. You can see it's totally integrated and coordinated. That all of the funding that touches programs and services that support older adults is operated by one entity. Like, it's none of that. And this is where there becomes a huge challenge as people age to navigate the system and to ensure that the system is designed to meet the needs of people who are aging and their family caregivers. Let's just go back a step. So you heard about the need for the workforce. We're talking about people, you saw your demographics, you're going to have more older adults. So one of the big questions is, who's going to take care of them? Right? And if you go to my next slide, we'll talk about kind of this long-term care financing crisis, where people, by and large, don't have and can't afford long-term care insurance or don't have long-term care policies. And they, over the years, have really changed. And my neighbors bought one, and they're like, oh, it's really great. It's $50 a day for me to be in a nursing home that my long-term care insurance policy. And I was like, oh, yeah, maybe we should talk about that. Is that really going to meet your needs? And is that where you want to be? And what are the other range of services that you can think about? And because most of the people can't afford policies, they're not able to pay for their services as they age, they spend down to become Medicaid eligible. And Medicaid becomes the default system for supporting the needs of older adults. And in some states, that really means you get to go to a nursing home. And so I don't know how many of you, your plan when you get older is to go in a nursing home. Shared hands? Right? So if you have to spend down, you need to have a system, if Medicaid's going to be the backbone of that, that's going to be able to support and keep people aging in place in the community and in their homes. And that has huge implications on the state if you have people spending down to become Medicaid eligible, because there's going to be a higher need for services. And as you saw in my previous slide, there's no coordination. And so how do you think about leveraging Medicaid dollars that might fall under Health and Human Services and coordinating that with AAA, Older American Act, Area Agency on Aging dollars to have an integrated system? And don't forget about transportation or other things. And so my next slide shows you a little bit about what that out-of-pocket spending looks like. And again, by and large, about half of all spending for long-term care needs comes out of pocket. And this is something that, again, all of you are in the know. You work in the field, you have an interest in the field, and I'm sure that you all are a voice to all of your friends and family about making sure that they're planning for their needs. But it's still huge because the cost is so much and the system is so fragmented and the need is so high. So with all that doom and gloom, do you know what the solution is? It's a master plan on aging. And so I'm going to turn it over to Megan, and she's going to talk to you a little bit about how that, I know I'm being kind of silly, but really how a master plan on aging can help states think about, coordinate, plan for the future to support their aging population.
Thank you, Erin. And I think it's still morning, right? So good morning, everybody. Yeah, so I'm going to, as Erin said, kind of talk about how a master plan can be used to prepare states in serving older adults. But I'm going to kind of start with just real high level, kind of talk about California's journey to a master plan, talk about what actually is a master plan and maybe what's not, and then kind of dive into what other states are doing. So on my next slide, we always just kind of start with, in California, as in probably in Colorado and other states, multiple calls for change. Drawing from everything Erin just shared with us through the years, is like, something's got to happen, something needs to happen. So on my next slide, in California, over the last couple decades, there were all these different reports that a lot of really smart, dedicated stakeholders put together with awesome recommendations, and they didn't go anywhere. They sat on shelves. And so it was like, okay, well, what makes it different? How do we make this different? And in 2018, the foundation partnered with a couple other funders, and you can go to my next slide. I don't know if the governor, yeah. Anyhow, and we did a campaign, We Stand With Seniors, to try to elevate the importance of a master plan, get stakeholders on board, did some polling of voters that said, yes, we need to address the needs of older adults, yes, we want a master plan. And finally, in February 2019, Governor Newsom, in a State of the State address, committed to doing a master plan. So that was like huge to even have aging discussed in the State of the State, right? It took a little bit more effort and work, and finally in June, he actually issued the executive order for a master plan for aging. And that kicked off then our process of bringing stakeholders together to develop that plan, really highlight what are the priorities, and that started in the fall of 2019. So next slide. And it was a pretty massive process with, so there was like the cabinet levels group leading, and then there was like the stakeholder groups informing, and then the stakeholders were like, well, we need to break into some subgroups, and so we had long-term services and supports work group that did an amazing report with recommendations of what should be included, and a research work group, and as things were moving forward, a number of stakeholders were like, you know what, we need an equity work group. How do we build that in to make sure that equity is infused throughout the master plan? And that was, like, to be honest, one of the best things, because that work group actually came up with a toolkit that said, here you go, when we're thinking about initiatives, when we're thinking about policy, here's the questions you should be asking, here's how you should be thinking about it, and to really be able to elevate equity throughout the discussion. So our master plan came out in January 21, so it's been about a year and a half. We celebrated 1 year in January. That master plan has 5 bold goals focused on housing for all ages, reimagining health, inclusion and equity, caregiver and workforce, and then affording aging, so economic security. Within those 5 bold goals are a bunch of strategies and over 100 initiatives. So it was very bold. We have not accomplished all of those initiatives in our first year, only touching on a few. But the work continues. And I think the other things that came out of this process as it was built out, not only do we have this master plan that is guiding the work at the state level, and is informing work across departments, they also built out a local playbook, because this is supposed to be a blueprint for implementation at the state, implementation in your local communities, implementation across sectors, whether that be, state, philanthropy, private sector. So to have that local playbook has been really great. We also built out a data dashboard, one dashboard on just aging. So again, the demographics, and I don't know, it's still just evolving, but just helping us to get a better idea of what's going on with the older adults in California, but also a dashboard that we are continuing to build out to measure impact and outcomes around the different initiatives. And that's super huge, and again, a challenge, but something that we're dedicated to doing. Next slide. So what makes a master plan successful? I started this research 2017, 2018, looking, drawing from ARP's LTSS scorecard, right? We saw that there were certain states that tended to be towards the top of the scorecard. We saw states even towards the bottom that were making significant improvements, and we wanted to understand what is it that helps these states to show those improvements. And shocker of all things, it's strategic planning and using the data to inform that. So I looked at some of those states, including Colorado, to see, again, what were those key elements. So first one, dedicated leadership, legislative, gubernatorial leadership. You can have either or, both is best. That the priorities are data-driven and that they're rational. That the master plan is comprehensive. Again, it's more than just Medicaid-funded programs. It's more than just Older American Act-funded programs. It's more than just healthcare, that it goes across sectors, across issues. That there is authentic stakeholder engagement throughout the process in developing the plan and implementing. And then most importantly, accountability. And I think that's, again, where the challenge is, but that accountability of having to report out outcomes and to report out regularly in 1-year intervals or whatever, makes it so that the plan is iterative and stays alive and continues to have impact. And so I would say Colorado, with SAPCA, has, the report that you guys have put out fits, to be honest, those first 4 categories pretty strongly. It's that accountability piece, and so I encourage you as you go forward. First of all, congratulations on the bill that was passed around CCOA and just continuing the work that you're doing in Colorado. But I strongly encourage focusing in on that accountability piece and figuring out how do you measure the success of implementing that plan. Next slide. So benefits, what have we seen just in the year and a half? A master plan helps to build those bridges across the government agencies, right? So healthcare to transportation to housing, getting them to start to work together. Raises awareness around policymakers and the public. So how do we use this to message the importance of paying attention to these issues? It's helped to develop partnerships with academia and research. It's applied an aging and disability lens, again, across state priorities. We're still working on that, to be honest, but it's given us a space to have a conversation. And when we talk about homelessness, are we talking about aging? When we're talking about housing, are we talking about aging? It has provided an actionable blueprint to address those budget windfalls and shortfalls, mostly windfalls right now. And so, for example, the ARPA funds for the home and community-based spending plan, we had the master plan in place. We had this really engaged group of stakeholders, and the state could turn to the plan and build out their HCBS spending plan from the work we did ahead of time. It establishes mechanisms to help manage a crisis. We were developing our master plan when COVID hit, and having all those stakeholders at the table really helped the state to pivot and draw on the knowledge, experience, and engagement of the stakeholders to address COVID in the state of California for older adults. And then equity, and having that equity across the state-led programs. Again, having the equity work group was key. So, next slide. This map, the red states are those that have what we would say a master plan for aging. And this was based on the research, to be honest, prior to California's master plan being done. And I would say through our process and our learning, we probably have our standards for what a master plan has grown. But this is where activity is. And then I think Vermont is a little green state, if you can see it, and they're kind of have a master plan under development. And the states that are blue with the stripes are states that have elements of a master plan. And what we like to tell states is, you know, you don't have to start from scratch, right? You have plans in place. You have work that's been done. And so how do you, and each state has their different strengths. Like, for example, Vermont, you know, they had one of the best dashboards that I've ever seen, and it helped influence our data dashboard, right? Colorado, you guys have Jared's position of the aging, Senior Advisor on Aging to the governor. That was amazing to learn about, and as part of our master plan, we incorporated that and have now a strategic, person in the governor's office, like terrible with titles. Anyhow, so there's a lot of great work being done. I think we're all learning from each other. There's always room for improvement, and it's really about building this movement to elevate aging into, as Aaron would say, to real people's viewpoint. And so I'm actually going to turn back to Erin so she can share a little bit about some of the work that we're doing with other states.
Great, thank you, Megan. And so the next slide. So, you know, we learned from all of you. You saw the map. Megan did all this research, talked to states. We were thinking, okay, something's got to happen. California, we say we because we have ownership on it, but it's not the SCAN Foundation's master plan for aging, it's California's. But we recognized, like, oh, this is really great. We were able to do this. And we were getting calls from people all over the nation. Can you tell us how you did this? Tell us more about the We Stand With Seniors campaign. Do you have to do it when there's a governor's race? Can you do it at another time? Tell us about, like, what data and how do you build a data dashboard and what does that mean? And really, do you need all the stakeholders? Like, do you have meetings across the state? So it was like we were getting all of these questions and we were like, okay, there's lots of interest here. We need to work on this. We need to expand this. And you know, one of the things we say is the silver lining of COVID is that it fundamentally changed so many aspects of the system of care that exists. There are a tremendous number of flexibilities to the Medicare and Medicaid program, like more change and innovation in those programs in the last 2 years than since their inception. So when we think about moving towards systems that are more person-centered, that focus on older adults, how do you leverage those things? The huge infusion of dollars from the American Rescue Plan that Megan was just talking about, billions of dollars coming into your state to support home and community-based services. How do you make sure that those dollars are used in a meaningful way and that you're planning for them so that when the dollars go away, it doesn't mean the program goes away, that you've fundamentally adjusted your system to continue those efforts? So there's this woman, her name is Carrie Graham. She was a consultant to the state of California as part of Master Plan for Aging Development. Carrie Graham went to work for an organization called the Center for Healthcare Strategies. So we reached out to the Center for Healthcare Strategies because Carrie was there, and we said, hey, can you help us build a toolkit? We're finding that we're having these same conversations with folks, and we think that it would be a really great resource. So we built a toolkit, how to get started with a master plan on aging. And then we continued to have discussions, and there were a lot of states that were coming forward. So we did a survey of states, and we said, hey, if there was an opportunity to be a part of a learning collaborative to build and implement a master plan for aging, would you be interested? 27 states said yes. So we were like, okay, there's lots of interest here. And so ourselves and 2 other foundations provided funding to the Center for Healthcare Strategies to build out that learning collaborative. They invited a subset of those 27 states to apply to be a part of the first cohort. And very exciting, Colorado was selected to participate. Woo! And this is super awesome because you all have done so much to really lay the groundwork. You have all of the pieces there. And I think that you're at this pivotal point as you heard about the changes this morning about the commissions and the leadership changing. And, early on, we identified that Colorado was a leader in planning comprehensively for the aging population. You saw the statistics, the demographics from Nancy about why that's so important. And now you're at this space where you're going to be working with 9 other states and a set of experts who built the plan in California and have been providing support to other states, that I think that it's just a really exciting moment for you. So the Colorado, the Learning Collaborative is going to be a year long, and there's going to be group learning, so peer-to-peer, but also really targeted technical assistance that meets you all where you are to be able to provide some support to help you get to that next step. So again, we were really excited to be invited to come here today. We've been watching what Colorado has been doing around planning for older adults. Again, I have a personal stake in it because my mom lives here. And so we look forward to watching your continued evolution as you move closer to getting to what we hope will be an actionable plan that really touches on all 5 of those elements. Thank you so much.
We are right now in a place where you don't find at a lot of conferences. We are right on schedule. So, we're not going to drop the next event at all. You all have been such a wonderful audience, just so great and all that. So that 15-minute break is all yours. Check them cell phones. Make sure nobody's being crazy at the work-at-home stuff. And we're going to reconvene and get rolling right at 10:45.